So a little bit more positive news. They're seeing some solutions possibly for deforestation. They want to try to give some of the indigenous communities legal title to their land. The cut forests lost by a whopping 81% if they're able to do this over the following year. They've seen it already in 3 areas that they were able to see these positive results. It's even more effective than if they were to create them as the national park instead of that, just letting the indigenous people that live in that area to better regulate their lands. I mean, this doesn't have, it's not without faults. You know, you do have some people that will get to the point where they might get desperate and sell off their lands, but they do have partnerships with friends and allies that are helping these indigenous communities to work together. In the There's sometimes in the country, sometimes across the world. Then they can blend traditional knowledge with 21st century expertise, and connections to mutual benefits. So instead of just leaving these people to their own devices, they're actually trying to get some kind of help for them. So they had one instance of this in the Rio de Semantes in Zingu, Brazil. They had a clash between the indigenous people over there, and there were a bunch of cattle farmers, and they do this fire stripping, burning of the forest to give land to the cattle to graze and everything like that. The
They give
to give
they
to
give
give
cattle.
area yeah to give area to the cattle to graze. But the problem with that is it was causing some of the rivers to dry up. Some of the forests were burning up, and they weren't able to control it. So it was causing problems for the cattle ranchers as well as the indigenous people in the area, because they were losing their homes. A lot of the forest that they were that they were used to was getting destroyed, as well as those same streams that they were using to help water the cattle. They were also losing for the indigenous people. So they were able to come up with a solution to help reforestation, giving seeds, a blend of seeds, because the cattle ranchers were just trying to replant. They didn't know what they needed to plant. They were trying to plant anything that they could when it came to trees, and the indigenous people were actually able to help by supplying seeds to these cattle ranchers that actually did take, and they grew back quickly enough to help rebuild the forest that they were getting burned out. So they have now more of an amicable relationship, because they're selling the seeds to the farmers, which is giving revenue to the indigenous people, and it's also helping these cattle farmers to sustain their livelihood as well. So that was something that they saw as a positive by allowing the indigenous people to reclaim their lands and to govern themselves. They had a second instance in Any Valley, Peru, that they had the communities had formed partnerships with the charity Cool Earth, which has been helping out a lot to help develop more sustainable ways of living, ones that keep the forest intact, yet that can match the one-off cash injection that would come from logging. They have rainforest grown coffee and chocolates. Farming like this helps to take the pressure off the forest and the slash and burn cultivation methods traditionally used to grow staples like yucca. So they're trying to help make sure, that those coffee beans that you're getting from Brazil and Peru and those exotic chocolates, that you're actually paying the people that are growing it the exorbitant prices you're paying over here for it. Cool Earth is really helping out to make sure that they're getting into the right hands of people that can purchase these things, to make sure that they're getting the max amount of money that they can get. So that way they're not getting into a desperate situation where they have to feel like they have to let these loggers come in and burn up their land to take the forests away. So that's really helped out to reforest in Peru. They also have a third one where it was the Congo Basin in Cameroon. It borders on Cameroon, and some of Africa's most successful rainforest initiatives have taken root. The country has recognized more than 260 community forests, and effectively given local people the rights over their home forests. So they've given back a lot of the forests in that area to their communities. And here it's helped form community-owned enterprises to enable locals to profit from sustaining harvesting and timber and other forest products such as wild mangoes and I can't say that. It's kind of nut. Used for natural oils and soaps. So they're still able to try to use it for logging, but they're using it in a sustainable way. They're helping to make sure that they're providing like fruits and vegetables that they can trade and sell off, so that way they're still able to keep that forest intact without having to turn to these logging companies that just come in and completely destroy these areas. They're really seeing the effects of of climate change from losing all this forest. So they're trying their best to try to figure out a way that'll help better than just trying to make it a national park, because at least these people in these areas, they know what's best to combat the deforestation that they're experiencing. They're finding ways to work within what they have, and there are these companies like Cool Earth that are helping out to make sure that they are successful in these new avenues that they're exploring, which I think it's great, you know. But I wanted to ask you guys, is there a path here to make a comeback in climate change if we keep doing this and allowing people to kind of govern their own land, but also not just leaving them to their own devices, but giving them an opportunity where they can link up with people that will be able to help them? Do you think it's a better idea to allow people to manage their own lands, even if they may be possibility for the quick sell-offs of land, you know? I think it's a great idea as long as they are linking up with people that are helping them to, you know, make it seem like they can speak to and get and reach more people from a business standpoint to sell a lot of these goods that they're trying to sell. I mean, you pay a lot of money if you go to Whole Foods and get Peruvian nuts or, you know, coffee beans that are from Colombia or something like that, or from Brazil. You pay a lot. The people should be getting that money. The people that are harvesting it should be getting that money, and they shouldn't be looking for desperate avenues of burning their own homes down to survive.
I think it's a good direction. Good. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, altruism is always good. No, altruism is always good. I think that there's always the fear of having the white savior complex and just going into different areas and trying to save them from their problems. But there are significant, when we have we're having a globalism occur in the world. So we need all of these different areas to trade and do it, et cetera. I actually was going to ask a question afterwards. What are we going to do about Bolsonaro and Brazil, for instance, which have these delogging situations, which are probably more advanced? If you ever look at a map of Google Maps, you can see the holes in Brazil where they've just taken out pockets of forest, and that doesn't occur when you go across the globe and go into different environments that are near the equator.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to Brazil, that also, I think that there's a lot of corruption when it comes to their government, because I think a lot of that forest was supposed to be like a national forest kind of deal too, which has let a lot of corruption come in through their administration. I think there was I can't remember now, of course, but there was a whole thing about it that the government was actually selling off a lot of that land to the loggers, and they weren't regulating them the way they were supposed to be, because they did have a point where they were like, oh, okay, yeah, you can do this much, but then the loggers kept pushing and pushing in more, and nobody was there to stop them. As long as the money was still coming in, they didn't give a shit. So I know, especially when it comes to Brazil and the Amazon rainforest, it was a big thing when it came to corruption. And I wonder if this isn't what the solution to try to directly combat that, by trying to give people back the land that was taken from them in a way, you know, because if you think about it too, just putting a stamp on it like, oh, well, this is, you know, this is a forest area that's protected. Who's really protecting it? Look at what they did during quarantine to the Joshua Tree and everything like that. You know, no one's really protecting anything. If you have the people that are living there, you know, trying to make sure that they know what's going on and they're in that community, they know people that are doing there to try to do harm and take over and burn and do the slash and burn routine, they'll be able to better, I don't want to say police, but like just safeguard that area against anything like that.
Yeah. There's also a big concern about stuff happening up here because the season change because of global warming. They're saying that, you know, they're concerned about California wildfires now, just in general, you know, not people doing it. So we all got to take care of our environment. I think it's going in the right direction. I think a lot of decisions people have been making, especially with like electric cars and everything. I know it's a little off topic in regards to the stuff that we're discussing, but I think in general people are starting to recognize that we need to start making changes, and some of the changes are for the better. Of course, you still got big corporations and other people that want to make money and profit from, you know, destroying things. But, you know, I think any good news is good, you know, is just in general good news, right? I think this is, I would feel is decent news, right? Like,
well, I think that statistic of 81% over, you know, of cutting the forest loss by 81% from just in a difference of a year by giving certain areas governance of their own lands. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty significant if they can, you know, provide outlets for these people to help them find another avenue of revenue other than deforestation and logging, then that would be great. I think it would really, really be tremendous. And it is a fight for all of us. It's not something that's just happening, which is something I think that we're slowly coming to the realization of. It's not something that's just happening in Peru or just happening in Brazil. This will affect everyone. This will affect our lives and our children's lives. So we need to start to realize that we need to act like we're on fire, and it's not just the rainforest. We need to act like we're all burning because we only have this one place. And we're not Elon Musk's. I can't afford to fly out into space and find another planet.
I mean, more importantly, this talks about consumption and the fact that we live in a very consumption-heavy environment, and not just in America. We've created this output, even from the United States outwards, that I believe is very consumption-heavy. And maybe not just from the United States. Maybe it's even a colonialist kind of situation. Where we're getting to the point where we're just taking in stuff and not realizing that we have to put much more back into the earth and much more back into different areas to just possibly get the same level of, especially with our increased population, to just get to the same level of balance. So when we talk about an organization like that, they're trying to reinstate some balance into the world. So it's a positive, and let's hope that there's more organizations that can do that, and not just organizations. Unfortunately, we have to think, can we get out of our capitalist structure so that we can actually have companies who care enough to not exploit areas? I'm not sure we're not at that point now. Let's just say that. I'll be optimistic and say we're just not at a point where altruism comes from these corporations. It's going to have to come from the people themselves demanding specific rights. People also getting used to not having everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what people are so obsessed with, being inconvenienced by how everything is now, you know, that they don't want to experience any kind of change, even if the impact is positive, you know. Even when it comes down to stuff like packaging and stuff, there's people that are trying to design seaweed that can replace plastics. It's a special kind of seaweed that they're growing that can replace plastics, and it's biodegradable. It totally degrades much more quickly than regular plastics. But, you know, we don't feel like it's worth investing in because it's easier and more affordable, especially when it comes to companies to manufacture with regular plastics. And we're not willing to pay more for something that might be better for the earth and more environmentally friendly when we can get it cheaper And even if it's filled with like 20 different unnecessary packaging, just to get to the one product, you know, we're going to have to look at passing legislation that will bring incentives towards corporations for looking for more effective ways of protecting our planet. That's the only way that we're going to end up getting corporations in any kind of way to try to make these changes. If we let them know that it'll affect their money, then they'll be fine. Okay, well, to make those changes, and it has to be an incentive. Probably, I would say probably more an incentive program, because there are plenty of companies that are willing to pay for, you know, as long as I can use this, I don't care if I have to pay a little bit extra in taxes or whatever, as long as I can still be using my plastic products. But if you're letting them know that as an incentive, yeah, you can save this much more money, it might be more beneficial to getting them to turn around.
Capitalism kind of screwed a lot of things up. They were all, you know, first people would start their business and they tried to sell things to people. And then people started undercutting and outsourcing and doing everything. And then products became cheaper and cheaper. So people got accustomed to having cheaper products, even though they might have been more dangerous for the environment. You know, it's like it's an effect of like what's been happening over time. And now it's kind of hard to kind of go backwards in time and fix those problems, because now, like, who wants to pay extra money for an iPhone? Because now they got to pay extra money for the manufacturing of whatever it is for that, or you know, whatever material that could be better for the environment. And then they also got to consider competition amongst other people as well. It's capitalism that screwed all this up. You know, in my mind, I don't know if I'm right or wrong about it, but in my mind, I feel the events that happen is what made people feel the way they feel. You know, like, I don't want to spend this money, you know, if it's going to cost me more money, or if it's going to cost the customers more money, because then I'll lose customers, or whatever it is. And with the earth is always giving, right? It's giving oil, it's giving the trees, if they're going to use the trees for whatever it is. The land itself has got value. So it's like, oh, we could abuse that. In their mind, they don't care, because they feel like it's not hurting anybody. But in the long term, you know, by them doing that, they're hindering our future. You know, it's crazy, but that's what I see it as.